Anatoly gradually got worse and worse, and then he had pulmonary edema. The last evening I spent with him, he said at one point, just go home. He was passionate about his work, and that power plant was his joy in life. As one of our friends once said, he was a soldier. He did what he was told. They buried Tolia in the Mitinskoye cemetery in Moscow. They say pain fades with time. It doesn't. Hello guys. As the last weeks, today we also continue the subject of Chernobyl Operators. It's a part of the wider miniseries called People of Chernobyl, which you can watch as one of our playlists. We are still covering the basics, so the Chernobyl nuclear power plant operators. Today, it's time for other, very important characters. To be fairly honest, there is no chance we can introduce you to all the people working at the power plant. Yet, we can at least tell you a bit about the ones that were significant to the story, or at least the ones we know more about. A person that was an important figure at Chernobyl was definitely Anatoly Sitnikov. If you watched the HBO miniseries, you must recognize the name. The quote you heard at the beginning was of his wife, Elvira, who spoke with Medusa.io journalist a few years ago. Anatoly will receive his own full episode, or maybe even two, but today it will be a short introduction of him and his colleague. Let's start. Chernobyl Victims. The Operators. Part 4. Anatoly Sitnikov was, in fact, one of the most important people in the whole Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Born in 1940, moved to work in the new plant in 1975. He was very dedicated to his job. His wife recalled he even woke up one night, sat on the bed with partially closed eyes, and explained loudly that it's crucial to watch the levels shown on the dosimeter, and fall back asleep. He quickly climbed the ladder and became the Deputy Chief Operational Engineer at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. He was Anatoly Dyatlov's counterpart in the hierarchy, but he was responsible for Units 1 and 2. On the fatal night, Sitnikov was called in immediately after the explosions happened and was working under direct, personally given orders from the plant's director, Bryukhanov. We know this thanks to Sitnikov's wife, who recalled the whole accident very well. She was 77 when she gave an interview in 2019. Around a few hours after Anatoly was called into the power plant, she contacted her husband and was told that he was inspecting all the rooms surrounding reactor number 4. So he was strolling through the highly irradiated spaces for a significant time. But it was not only a matter of ionizing radiation sources like the opened reactor, graphite chunks or other debris. The place was swarming with smaller and bigger fires, which produced a lot of smoke. This mixed with steam and other chemicals released by the explosions. Anatoly, as well as other operators and firefighters present there, was breathing that toxic mixture in. If we were to believe different sources, there was a meeting of Bryukhanov, the plant's director, Nikolai Fomin, chief engineer of the plant, and Nikolai Parashin, who was chief engineer of reactor number 3, and Dyatlov, deputy chief engineer of the power plant. When Sitnikov joined, he was ordered to inspect the reactor building and assess the damage. He climbed the roof of reactor number 3 and saw the disaster beneath his feet. The problem with that meeting is that the main quoted source of this information is Anatoly Dyatlov, but he was taken to the hospital due to the first symptoms of acute radiation syndrome before Sitnikov arrived. Nonetheless, we are certain that Sitnikov acquired significant doses of ionizing radiation, and given the role he played on the first day of the disaster, he had to come close to one of the biggest radiation sources. So climbing up there and seeing the gaping hole in the roof of the reactor number 4 building was a probable scenario. Elvira, Sitnikov's wife, called the power plant around 11 AM and spoke with Anatoly. We may speculate that the first symptoms of radiation sickness were already giving signs. He told her that he was feeling very bad, but refused when she suggested he should go to the infirmary. However, she managed to convince the medical staff to take him to the Pripyat hospital. When she finally saw him at the hospital, Elvira remembered that he looked tanned. It was hyperemia, one of the typical signs of receiving high radiation doses, above 3000 millisieverts. The blood rushes to different tissues in the body, giving the skin a specific redness, which may resemble a tan or a sunburn, depending on the acquired radiation dose. Soon, as was the story of many other operators, he was transferred to Moscow Hospital No. 6, which specialized in treating radiation victims. He had third-degree IRS, which meant that the damage was severe and the white cell count low. If it wasn't bad enough, his lungs were injured too, from the smoke he inhaled. He had a bone marrow transplant administered, yet it didn't make any difference and his body rejected it, which led to another disease and autoimmune suppression. Adding multiple infections, skin, lung and other injuries, his fate was sealed. Later, scientists determined that his estimated overall ionizing radiation dose was 6 sieverts, with 15 sieverts to the head. This was more than enough to kill a healthy adult in a matter of weeks. Anatoly Sitnikov died in Moscow on May 31, 1986, a little more than a month after the disaster happened. He was buried alongside other operators in the Mitinskoye cemetery. His wife tried to be with him as long as she could. She said later that he was passionate about his work and that power plant was his joy in life. As one of our friends once said, he was a soldier. He did what he was told. Anatoly gradually got worse and worse, and then he had pulmonary edema. The last evening I spent with him, he said at one point, "You know, just go home." The next morning, I came to the hospital and ran into a nurse in the hallway. She said to me that Tolia died. I didn't even know where to buy a black scarf to cover my head. At first, I just wanted to pass out on some pills and sleep. I was in agony. I was in such a state that I couldn't think about distractions. I just thought about whether I wanted to keep living, and about how to get out of all this. My kids pulled me through it. They say pain fades with time. It doesn't. Aleksandr Yuvchenko was a senior mechanical engineer on the 5th shift at Unit 4. When the disaster happened, he was in his office between the reactors 3 and 4. If you didn't know that, the reactor buildings were constructed so the staff could navigate through the complex fairly easily. When the reactor exploded, Yuvchenko felt something like a shockwave, as he later described. Aleksandr was probably the first person to realize that the reactor hull was completely destroyed. He met Dektaryenko, who was badly hurt but still managed to ask Aleksandr to rescue Holemchuk, who was left behind. It was at this point when Yuvchenko understood that Valery couldn't survive that explosion. He was also one of 2 first operators who saw the ionized air glow coming out of the partially collapsed reactor building. It was him and Yuri Tregub. During their run through the corridors of Unit 4, they met other operators, including Valery Perevoschenko, and split up. 4 of them climbed up to assess the damage better. 3 out of these people died in the hospital later due to radiation sickness. Aleksandr was 25 when the disaster happened. He was lucky enough to live through the acute radiation syndrome, but it wasn't easy. He couldn't even walk and spent a year in the Moscow Hospital No. 6, receiving different treatments. Despite this, he had different health problems, and he passed away in November 2008, at the age of 47, because of leukemia. You may hear his story in a way longer version in some of our other videos, which are all on the playlist called Chernobyl Operators. I hope you learned something new today, guys. Remember that if you have any questions, I, or the other stalkers, will try to answer them. And I will always be happy to hear your suggestions for the new series on our channel. I read your comments even if I don't have time to answer them all. So I was happy to see that you would like to have some more behind the scenes from making our game, Chernobylite. We will think about what we can show you and will prepare it in the near future. Stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you watch our videos, best to do it from the start to the end. YouTube likes it a lot. Also, check out our Chernobylite if you haven't played it yet. That's it for today, guys. Stay safe, take care, and see you next week.